Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So I picked this game this week, and I've always been aware of the series, Blaster Master. Never played any of them. Typically, they are 2D and not 3D like this game.
Right.
So
I was actually going to ask you what was your thought process behind picking this, but that makes a lot of sense.
well, I know the newer ones are just like straight up Metroidvanias.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I mean, when the Switch first came out, I think some of these were out. The newer series is called Blaster Master Zero. And I never bought any of them, but I've bought other games by the same developer because they make a lot of those like retro style kind of games. And I've always been intrigued by this, but I just never put in the time to play it. So when I was looking through the list of PS1 games, I'm like, I know this. So I figured it would be kind of similar to those. So I was a little surprised to find out it was full 3D.
Yeah. Whenever I was looking this up and trying to do some research prior to even playing it, I saw a lot of the 2D things and I was like, and now after playing it, I wonder what the gameplay would be like compared between the two of, obviously with the 2D style, you are doing that Metroidvania-esque gameplay.
I mean, even this game, which we'll get into in a bit, but like, it's still, I would say, a light Metroidvania.
Yeah. The genre of this game confused me for a while, and I don't really know how to classify it. Yeah, there's not much I can say without actually getting into the episode.
Yeah, that's fair. So, you been up to anything this week?
No. My life has been so incredibly busy this whole entire week. I've been having to like make checklists of everything I need to get done every single day because I'm just like going a million miles per hour.
I also do that. I have in my notes app, I have like a list of things for myself, a list of things for the band, a list of things for this. So like every day I'll like look at it, usually right after work, and I'm just like, okay, which of these things am I going to do today?
Yeah. And the fact is like we started this during winter-ish. So it was so much easier to get these episodes done and edited and all that stuff. Now that it's becoming nicer weather, I'm like now juggling the show with actually being social and going out and doing stuff and doing all that. I'm like, I don't know how Jimmy has the time to do this show plus the band and all the things that you need to do.
Yeah, I don't have time. That's the thing. So honestly, pretty much every day I'll spend 2 hours, 3 hours usually working on something, whether it's the band or this, and then, you know, get everything I need to get done around the house, whatever else. And then I do all that pretty much as soon as I get home from work. That way I can just get everything done because once I chill out, I'm not doing anything else.
Right.
So like come home, do all that, and then I'm done for the night. And then I'm just like, I'm good. It's very satisfying to like get a few things, you know, whether it's like editing or like playing a game or even like working on riffs, anything like that. Getting that fulfillment from doing that. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm good for the day. I did my thing for the day, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just where I'm at right now, trying to juggle all of that. But what about you? Anything new with your week?
So I did have a little bit of extra time this week, actually. So I played a new game called Another Crab's Treasure.
I have been hearing about this and it popped up in my YouTube recommended. I haven't really watched much of it, but a guy at work told me a lot about it. But what is this whole premise?
It's what if Dark Souls was underwater and you play as a crab?
That's amazing.
It's literally Dark Souls combat. Yeah, I am about 2 hours in, so I'm not super far or anything. It's not too long of a game, which is actually also very enticing to me. I think it's like in total 10 to 15 hours.
Oh, wow.
For like a full Dark Souls kind of game. That's pretty short, honestly.
And I watched about 5 minutes of gameplay, the person that you and I both watch a lot of. And I was surprised at how colorful it was and how bright and fun it looked. Typically, like the Lies of P is another Souls-like game. They always go the dark route. Everything's dark and gloomy and evil. So the fact that this is all bright and happy and almost like a kid's game in a sense is an interesting take on it.
That's also how I found the game, by the way, was I saw Northern Lion posted it and I was like, what is this? I started watching it for a minute and I'm like, time to stop watching this because I'm going to play it now. So
yeah, it looks fun. If I had the time, I'd love to play it.
It's interesting because like The gimmick of it is like you find shells on the ground and that's like your shield. It's a constant like juggling that. And plus it has like all the skill trees, all that stuff. Like it's a very deep game too. It's not just like a throwaway Dark Souls like. It's very well thought out.
Yeah.
And the story is also good. It's like about pollution and about how it's like corrupting the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's this one part pretty early on where they're like, it's trash day. I'm so excited. And it's someone who dumps their trash into the ocean.
Oh.
So all the stuff's coming down and they're all trying to get it to like sell to each other as like treasure.
Oh, and I think that's your currency too, right? Like plastic and stuff.
It is. It's microplastic.
That's very clever.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole premise is just like you're a little crab and somebody steals your shell. So you're just trying to get it back and you keep getting roped into other things on the way.
I mean, that's the one thing I'm enjoying seeing this year. Like we have the Krabby game, we have Balatro. It's taking these genres of games that we're all kind of used to and it's flipping it on its head a little bit, bringing something new to the genre.
I still play a little bit of Balatro every week too. That's like my like, I got a little bit of time before bed. I'm going to play a little bit of Balatro. When that game comes to mobile, I am in trouble.
Yeah. I think if it ever comes to mobile, just don't tell me because my life will be gone forever if I get that game.
The developer said he's working on it already.
Oh,
so it is coming.
I will admit, when you told me about that game, I did look it up on the App Store to see if maybe he already made it mobile. Luckily, no, but that's going to be a very unproductive week of editing.
Well, they also just released, are you familiar with Loop Hero?
Loop Hero? No, I don't think I've heard of that.
It's kind of a game where essentially there's this grid in front of you and it's like a little road and you keep getting these cards and your guy is constantly walking on a loop through this road and you're placing down tiles with the cards that you get. So the cards can be like a mountain and then it gives you plus 1 HP or like stuff like that. You also have to place down enemies so that you can kill them and get loot.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very fun. And it's like your character just automatically goes and you get into combat, you collect resources, all that stuff. That came to mobile this week.
Oh, okay.
I have not played it yet, but I did download it. I just downloaded the demo because I want to see if I'm actually going to play it because I can never play phone games. I've tried so many times. I know I will play Balatro because that game that's tailor-made for phones.
Yeah.
But like I bought The Binding of Isaac on my phone and I just like played it once and I'm like, I can't play this with a touchscreen.
It's some getting used to. I had Stardew on my phone and it works in a sense, but it's not the smoothest gameplay. So there are times that it takes you out of it while you're trying to figure out how to make this work with a tap screen, but it does its job for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like you need one of those things you put on the sides to make it a controller if you're really going to go crazy with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with that, let's go ahead and just hop into this game. Blaster Master Blasting Again was released on May 6, 2001. Very late PS1 game. PS2's already out at this point.
Very, very late.
Developed by Sunsoft and published by Crave Entertainment. And like we talked about, I don't really know what the genre is. I wrote down run and gun platformer, but it does have like light Metroidvania elements where like you get a power up, then you go and do something else with that power up.
Yeah, but then also you have like a maze aspect to it and a light puzzle aspect to it as well. So it's just all these different tiny bits of elements of different genres combined into one, more or less.
So how long did you play this game for?
3.5 hours ish. A little.
Wow.
Yeah. How about you?
I played right around 3 hours.
Oh, okay. A lot of that I got lost at one point. I'll get back into that when we get to that point, but that makes up a little.
I did have to look up one thing because I got like stuck and it was simple, but yeah, that was today I got lost. But yeah, I beat 3 bosses. That's where I stopped.
Okay. I made it to 2 bosses, almost to the 3rd boss, and I stopped too.
Okay, so I didn't make it that much farther than you. I stopped literally right after I beat the 3rd boss.
Oh, okay.
So
the main premise of this game is you're 2 kids that your parents fought aliens that were inside of Earth at some point.
I'm pretty sure what it refers to is the plot of like the earlier games or like some sort of lore with that. Like this is from something else.
That's what it seems like. And then now the aliens are back, and now you got to take your dad's ship, I think, and you go into Earth to fight them. Interesting fact, though, in the manual, it says that this game takes place in 2019.
That's funny.
Which is such a weird year to pick. But also, they were 1 year off. If they would have said this takes place in 2020, I'm like, I would believe this. This makes sense.
Well, it's just funny because this came out 2001. That's not that far into the future.
Exactly.
It's like, like Blade Runner and all that shit. Like that stuff was pretty far out from when it was happening. And like most games, it's like in the year 2345. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is like, in 18 years, there's going to be an alien invasion.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's sci-fi, so like whatever. But like, it's just funny how do they decide that? You know what I mean? Same with like even Back to the Future. Like, where do you pick the number from?
Yeah, in my head, you would just want to go as far into the future as possible to make it more believable. 18 years is like, there's some disbelief here.
Yeah, it's like you telling me in 20 years there's going to be flying cars and robots and aliens. I'd be like,
yes.
Settle down, buddy.
Which aren't we past the point of like the Jetsons when the Jetsons took place?
I think we are. I think, and we're also past Back to the Future as well.
Yeah, I remember that day when everyone celebrated that. It was like the Back to the Future day.
Yeah.
Off the bat, the storytelling in this game is terrible. Even reading the manual, did you read it at all?
I didn't.
It is like someone never knew how to write a story and they decided to tell what the story is. Just a bunch of jumbled sentences that don't work together and they jump around on what the story's about and come back to things they already talked about. I'm like, who wrote this? Who made this manual up? Even the way they describe stuff in the manual doesn't make a lot of sense most of the time.
I mean, even going off of that, the voice acting is terrible.
I think you may agree that this may be the worst voice acting we've had so far.
Yeah, the only one that's like almost as bad that comes to mind is Siphon Filter.
I knew you were going to say that, which I think I get now where you're coming from with the female voice actor in that game, because this almost sounds like they walked up to an employee in the office, held a mic up to him and said, hey, we need you to say some lines real quick just so we can put it into the game. Because there's no emotion in his voice at all when he's saying anything.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Siphon Filter is this bad. I'm just saying the closest that we've seen so far would be Siphon Filter.
Yeah. Some of the dialogue between them, it almost sounds like they made two robots talk to each other with different voices.
It's almost like it's like AI. Like it's just literally like AI generate this story and they have to have dialogue, so figure it out. You know what I mean?
There's so many big pauses too, where he'll say something snappy to his sister, and there's like a good 10-second pause, and she's like, hey, watch it. And it's like, what are you guys doing?
I also really quick wanted to say, I think the voice acting that's not those two is pretty good. Like the bosses and stuff and like the other things going on.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff is all fine. It's just for some reason, those two just fucking are horrible.
I don't know how they chose those two people. Especially that guy. That guy's like, he just woke up out of bed.
Most uncharismatic lead ever. Like,
wow, who is this guy? It's like, come on, man.
But yeah, I think the graphics are also pretty good. Like, I think the way this game looks is very cool.
Yeah, graphics, animations during the cutscenes are spectacular. Kind of makes me think they probably should have cut down on the budget of the cutscenes to maybe put that into the voice acting a little bit more. But
the general aesthetic and vibe kind of reminds me of Armored Core almost.
Yes. Immediately upon starting this game, I thought we were getting back into an Armored Core type game. There's a lot of similarities there.
Well, to be fair, this is way, way easier than that game.
Oh,
so
100%. Yes.
Also, did you play on easy?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I would imagine that the only difference is that you just don't take damage as severely and they just give you more drops from enemies.
I will say with the bosses, I don't know if it's easy or what, like if it's the mode, like I just stood there and held fire for the first two. Like I didn't even have to dodge anything. I just stood there.
Oh, okay.
For the second boss, I literally did not move. Like I did not move one time. Like at the very end, when they started to like come towards me, I moved a little bit. But like I just, for the first half of it, just stood there and fired straight ahead.
The second one being that giant guy in front of you when you're not in your ship, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I did jump around like side to side just because I was just trying to dodge stuff. But it seems like there was times he should have hit me and he still didn't. And I'm pretty sure I got done with that boss in like 10 seconds. maybe 30.
So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. So I'll just say this and then we'll kind of go back to the beginning. But the boss that you didn't play, the third boss, it is some of the stupidest fucking shit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh.
It's not even hard. It's not like anything. It's literally just boxes on the ground.
What?
I'm almost tempted to show you this fucking footage because I can't even believe that this is a boss in this game.
Okay, so we're also looking at Jimmy's third boss, and it's a blue moving box. This is it?
This is it. Just these boxes moving back and forth. If you don't kill them fast enough, they kind of just like stick to the wall and then another one will spawn. So you have to like hurry up and take care of them before you get overwhelmed. You see me just tanking the hits and I'm just like, fine.
That's where I think like it might be the easy mode that helps there.
It must help a lot because like I had no trouble. Even in general with this game, I had no trouble.
The only time, we'll get into that. But yeah, I think this was a very easy game and more or less you just casually went through every single level. I'm impressed at how lackluster this third boss is.
I just couldn't believe it. Like, that's it. I just showed you the whole boss fight.
Wow. Yeah, so the first boss you jump into, which ironically is the most fun and the most going on, I guess. And your typical like mech boss battle fights, he has these like tons of missiles that come out of his back and like track onto you. And then he has these giant laser beam balls that shoot out. I mean, immediately whenever his health bars come up, there's what? Maybe 30 health bars that show up.
Yeah, it's like different parts of his body.
Yeah, which is very unique. I love that. But it makes it seem, well, I guess it is a lot more intense than it should be. But it felt like a legitimate boss fight. And then you get to the second boss and you're done in like, what, 10, 30 seconds. And you're like, wait, what? That was it? I was waiting for a part 2 of that where like the boss comes back a second time. But that never happens.
That's literally exactly what I thought was about to happen. When it like started to disappear, I'm like, here we go. Now here's the real boss fight.
Yep.
And then it's just like, just kidding, it's over.
So then you get to the third one and now it's just boxes. So it was like, what is the fourth one? Is that just like you walk in and you win?
I know, right?
It's like they went all extreme with the first one and never made it that extreme again.
Yeah, I mean, those are all the bosses that I played and they were all just super simple. So like, I would like to think at least maybe the final boss is hard, but I don't know. It's tough because I don't know how much of this is due to us playing on easy mode. And you know what I mean? I don't want to just be like, this game's too fucking easy, but I played on easy mode. So like, I don't know.
And also, is there a lot of like lore that we're missing out on from the earlier games that this is referencing back to?
That's true. But at the same time, I honestly don't even think you need to pay attention to the story in this game whatsoever to enjoy it.
No. I think the story is second hand to what the rest of the gameplay is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like a gameplay forward game.
Mm-hmm. But back to the beginning. There's different worlds in here. So you start in what?
The ground or like the ground level or whatever.
And then you have different warp points. And like most games, you have to go through the first warp point, beat that, until that unlocks the second warp point. The first one is Earth. And each one is themed. You have Earth, water, plant, and then you never saw what the next one was, did you?
No, I just went back to like the original area and then I didn't continue.
Okay. Pretty cool how there's themes for each world, quote unquote.
Yeah, like different biomes.
Yeah, and the gameplay loop is just you have to find switches to unlock a base, and then you continue to find buttons, and then you fight the boss.
Yeah, you're just finding switches and buttons and then fight the boss and then go to the next place and do the same thing again.
It never changes from what I've seen. And on YouTube, I went and kind of skimmed through a long play of it. It never changes either. I think the farther you get into this game is where the more puzzle aspect of it comes in.
Yeah, and I mean, even going back farther to the beginning, you know, you play as a car.
Yes.
Most of the time. You're driving around, you can shoot, you have a special attack, and then you can get out of the car whenever you want and just be a little man.
Which is nice because it shows the perspective of the world. Like when you're in this car, you're like, okay, there's nothing great about it. But when you get out and you're just tiny little person on the screen, it really puts the scale of the rest of your environment.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to get out of the car sometimes to go into these like little like mini dungeons where you have to play as the guy.
Which I like. It's a very unique feature, but the controls of the guy, especially with the camera, is the most infuriating thing about this game.
I felt like every time because you have to hit the triggers to switch the camera, but I always felt like wherever I tried to switch it to, it would do the opposite.
Yes. I never got used to it, and I kept hitting the wrong one when I wanted to go a different way. I eventually just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to turn left. So that's left trigger. And I just had to like keep that in my head of like constantly reminding myself how I need to go about this.
Yeah. And it's also very tough with the camera because like you can't see where enemies are, and then you're trying to like frantically move the camera and you're just getting shot at. And the game doesn't really auto aim for you, like maybe a tiny bit, but for the most part, you have to aim right at them.
Yes. It is not as courteous as a Bug's Life was with the auto aim.
I was just about to make that same comparison. Like this is very much like if an enemy is above you, you got to jump and shoot them because it's not going to just go up and hit them.
Yes. Most of my gameplay is just jumping. I feel like as long as you jump and you can do a side dash, as long as you just keep doing those, you're pretty much safe through this entire game.
Well, there's also the whole thing where like you don't really even have to fight the enemies because it's not like you level up or like really get that much. Like, yeah, you get like to power up your weapons and like you get health back, but especially when I'm trying to figure out where to go and solving the puzzle of the area or whatever, like I'm just running right past half of them.
Mm-hmm. There's really no reason to kill anyone. There's so many points where I just sometimes clear the screen, like you said, to figure out where I'm going. But aside from that, once I knew where I was going and what I needed to do, if I had to go back through the area, which every time you go into the area again, the enemies respawn, I just ran right by every single person.
Yeah, the only time where I would definitely kill them all is like the corridors with the spiders because they would always just nail hits on you if you don't shoot them.
Yep.
That and like the big like machine guns, those were also really annoying.
Yeah. But I also feel like as long as you just jumped whenever they shot at you, you were fine, at least from what I saw.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. It just like would get annoying sometimes when I would be just trying to figure something out and they're all shooting at me and I'm like, I really don't want to clear this room right now, but like I guess I have to.
Mm-hmm. When you're trying to solve a room or figure out where you're going, I completely understand and agree that you need to clear before you can do that, because especially when you're in some of the dungeons, if you're on a like tiny catwalk with acid underneath you, those bat things can push you off of the catwalk into the acid. So
those little skeleton bat things were so fucking annoying because I never felt like I could reliably hit them.
No. It was so annoying. I had one where I'm like shooting everyone and one of the bats came and pushed me and I went backwards through the door into the previous room. So then when I came back, they all respawned. I had to do it all over again because of that.
I would just jump in the acid and run past them. I don't even care. I take a little bit of health, but like, get me out of here.
I guess so. And I think it's just one of those things, if we did play on normal or hard, that wouldn't be an option because we probably would have lost so much health.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, even on easy, like if you're in the acid for more than a second, you start taking a lot of health damage.
Oh, okay. I was never in there for that long, so I never knew.
Well, if you're in there and you just jump right out immediately, you still take like 1 bar. But like if you stay there, it just keeps going down and down.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, we talked about the camera, but like, what do you think about the controls overall?
It was a little hard to get used to controlling the vehicle. It was smooth in a sense, but at the same time, it felt a little too, I don't even know the word. Like it just responded to your controls a little too well, I think.
I just had a really hard time with the like precision platforming.
Yes. There was times when you had to do a jump and you barely make it onto that platform when you jump with that car.
There's also multiple times where like it happens in the first world and in the third where like if you miss the jump or you fall off, you have to like go through like 5 other rooms to get back where you were.
Oh my God, yes. I almost quit because of that.
I was at my wit's end about to use save states. I was literally so close and I'm just like, no, all right. Like you're about to see in this footage right now, I'm about to do it. And it's just so annoying.
But yeah, it's one of those things that I've also had it where I jumped, landed on the next platform, but then the car rolls forward and then I fall off the edge.
Extremely frustrating. And then also being underwater is just a nightmare.
You move so slow, but it's a good segue into the fact that there are upgrades for your car. And one of those is a submarine thing.
Wait, really? You got that?
We didn't get it, but it's in the manual. It talks about the submarine being an upgrade.
I was going to say, how the fuck did you get that?
Yeah. If we would have played longer, we would have gotten it, and it would have made the water levels so much easier.
The first thing you unlock is there's basically 3 new versions of your car that you can switch between anytime you want at will.
Yep.
Which I did think was cool, that you could just like do whatever you want. So the blue one, if you hold down the special power button, you shoot like a homing missile and it locks on to different targets. I pretty much rolled with that one most of the time.
Me too. Yeah.
The green one, it says it gives you like a protective barrier. I didn't really use that at all. Like I messed with them all as soon as I got them, but I was like, whatever.
Exactly.
And the yellow one shoots this like short range lightning out, which I did use. There's that part where you have to fight the 3 mechs out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In the final level that we played, I used that to kill those, and it was very effective.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about that. I just used the homing one for that.
Just because they're like right up on you the whole time. So like using the close range, they just like walk right into it pretty much.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I used the homing one the most just because it was reliable and it had the most of the special bar. So you could use it as many times as you really wanted to.
I never really figured out how your special bar increases.
Yeah, you just get like the power ups on the ground. I don't remember what each one means, but like those all do things and I would just pick them all up. So I don't know.
Even going back to the manual, when they try to explain what everything does, I still don't fully grasp what everything is. There's something about increasing your shooting power. It's like, oh, if you hold the X button, you can control how much your shooting power is. But I'm like, X is jump. So what are you talking about? Like, how is holding X supposed to do anything? And I've tried it and it doesn't do anything. Because I don't know if you've noticed, there's little black bars on this special bar too that show up. Don't know what that means either.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of played this as the same way I played it in the beginning, you know, just pretty much holding down the shoot button of the main gun and then using the homing when I needed it. But like, I didn't really pay attention to most other things just because I didn't feel like I needed to.
Which is really funny. The part we're looking at the screen right now that you're doing in your car, I did this on foot as the person. And this is the closest I came to almost dying.
I didn't die ever.
Oh, me neither. And there's no fall damage either. So there's areas where you just fall into like an abyss and they just take you to a new area when you land.
Yeah.
So it's very forgiving on your mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, the most stressful part was probably like on that last level that we played where you have to push the button with your car and then get out and then go and walk to this other area.
Which I love that they introduced that.
That was actually where I got stuck because I didn't realize that was a button because like sometimes there's stuff like that in the environment anyway. So I just thought it was just something sitting there.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
So I like scoured the area a few times and I'm like, all right, I don't really know what to do. I've been to all these. I went to all the different little like mini dungeons with the guy and there was nothing in those. So I'm just like, all right, I guess I have to look up what to do.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw them push the button, I'm like, all right, this makes sense. That's why they have the specific catwalks for you so you can make the journey over there without having to go all the way around.
It's a very nice feature that they slowly introduce. Like they wait until the 3rd biome to actually give you this puzzle. And it seems like the first 2 are kind of getting you used to the fact that you can leave your car. And then when this comes along, they now put that to use.
Now, did you experience any frame rate stuff?
Oh,
did you notice it?
My God.
Finally.
For every boss battle was frame drops.
If you were about to tell me you didn't notice it this time, I was going to start getting a little mad. I'm not gonna lie.
The instant it happened, I was like, this is going to be something Jimmy complains about. But not even bosses. If there's just a lot of enemies on the screen firing something, it dropped so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of constantly just like would dip for no reason. But I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, but like, it doesn't really bother me here. This game should be solid, like 30, 60, whatever. But I didn't find myself really noticing it, minus like the boss fights. And there's one part at the end where you walk over a catwalk and it shows all these fish below you. That part, it slows down really slow.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. I was so into the gameplay that it really didn't bother me that much.
I can see that there's so much action going on that you don't really notice.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, this game coming out so late on the PS1, this shouldn't be fucking happening. This should not be an issue.
No, not at all.
So that's the part that's a little annoying. But at the end of the day, like it didn't really bother me that much. So I will say that.
It's funny that you bring that up because when you kill an enemy and they drop something, those things disappear after a certain amount of time. And I would be a hypocrite here, but it doesn't bother me at all either that it disappears this time. Because I feel like it's more generous. They give you a lot more time to go pick up the item. It's not like 5 seconds and then it's gone.
I only noticed them disappearing like a few times because I would always just grab them so quick.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only times where you deliberately didn't go to the area where they were sitting that they would disappear.
Honestly, I genuinely had a good time playing this game. I thought it was really fun. It did start to get a little repetitive towards the end. Like once I realized what the loop is and how it's just going to be like, hitting switches, pushing buttons the whole time. But like, that's what all these kind of games are anyway. Like any Metroidvania or any game like this, it's like, go to this area, unlock these things, go to the new area, get a new power up, use that. You know what I mean? It's kind of standard for what this is,
Right. But I think in that aspect, it's not. So your power ups only come in the form of your ship. And at least from what I noticed, the time you use it is when you get the climbing one, and you can now access an extra area in one of the main worlds.
The climbing is also dumb. It's super slow, and you're just like, why is this even here?
Yeah, the climbing is slow, but it's not like your guy is getting upgraded at all. So when you go into these dungeons, you don't have any new abilities aside from maybe a different gun. Anything you're upgrading is on the exterior of the dungeons to just access new points.
Honestly, I think this game would be better if it didn't even have the stuff where you get out of it. If they just doubled down on only being the car, because like, while it's not bad, I'm not saying it's like horrible or anything, but it's just not as fun. I think that mostly is the camera stuff. So like if this was a modern game and you had full control of the camera, it would be fun. But I just never felt in control a lot of the time. I just felt like I was fighting with the camera. So at the end of the day, it's just like, I just wanted to get back in the car as soon as possible.
I think it's a unique concept. I just think it's not polished. And if they polished it up more and it wasn't so janky and that you had to like fight with the camera all the time, I would have liked it a lot more. The fact that you're not glued to your car is very cool, in my opinion.
I mean, honestly, what you just said could apply to this whole game, right? It's all generally pretty janky. Like it never feels super polished, but like at the same time, like it's still just a fun game to play. It's fun to move around in this game.
It is, yeah.
That's important to me. You know what I mean? Like the gameplay is just from the minute you control, you're having fun playing it. And it never felt like a chore. If I had more time, I would have kept playing this. Like I only stopped because like I hit a logical stopping point for the show. So I'm like, this is a good place, but I would beat this game. I mean, I can't say how the rest of the game is, obviously, but like I had a fun time.
Yeah, from what I saw, it's just more of this. You're doing more puzzles in different areas, and that's the extent of it. I agree that I don't think it was boring. It kept my attention. It was fun. I never felt like the game was dragging like most games where we play for 10 minutes and it feels like 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
With this, I got 3 hours in and it never felt like I was playing for 3 hours. Although it just felt repetitive in the gameplay loop.
Once you notice it, it's like hard to feel excited, if that's the right phrasing. Like now that I know it's going to be the same thing in every area I go to, yeah, it's going to be executed differently, probably. I mean, it was each time here, but at the core, it's still the same thing every time.
Yeah, and I mean, people have brought it up in comments before that that's just gaming. Like every genre is just repetitive with the things you do. And I don't really understand the psychology behind why some things are fun and why some aren't. But it's just one of those things of, at the end of the day, this wasn't a chore, even though it's repetitive. While other games are just very, very fun, even though it's all repetitive. And it's just what makes that difference.
I honestly think this game could just be improved if, like, I think a lot of it feels straight copy pasted, especially the dungeons.
Yeah.
So, like, if they just mixed it up a little bit, mixed up the way that you have to hit the switches, or like just a slight puzzle, or just like something to mix it up here and there would have went a long way. Like, I'm not saying it's bad how it is. I just think that if they spiced it up, it would be way better.
Yeah, I noticed it when I got into like the second dungeon part. I think it was in the second world. And I noticed that it's the same floor patterns, same walls, same doors. They just changed out the spike traps with like a laser trap or something. And that was the only difference. And then when I got to the third world and went into a dungeon and it looked exactly like the second world dungeons, I'm like, okay, now we're just repeating the textures of everything.
Yeah, it's like they put more effort into the biomes of like the car stuff and just felt like they could just copy paste the dungeons for some reason.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It doesn't hurt the game a ton, but it's just something that you can't help but notice.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the constant loading screens?
That was on my list to bring up. It's pretty fucking annoying.
There's maybe every 30 seconds, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, that you're hitting a loading screen to get to the next area.
How about how long it takes to save your fucking game?
That, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's something we never talk about in these games, ever. I wanted to bring it up in A Bug's Life because A Bug's Life had the fastest saving I've ever seen in a game. And then we get to this game, and if I had to save, I just set down the controller, start typing up notes, because it literally took that long to get through and actually save the file.
That was my phone break while I was playing.
And like, I would feel like enough time has passed. I'm like, okay. And then I look and nope, still saving the data. I'm like, what are you doing that is taking so long?
I know. There's not that much going on here. It shouldn't take that long. And this is also a late PS1 game. Why? Like, why?
Yep.
But yeah, the constant loading screens really hampers it a lot, I would say, just because like it's like a solid like 5 seconds, like every minute, every 30 seconds. It's like, here's 10 seconds of loading. It's like, all right.
Which we complained about with Blood Omen. But for some reason, this doesn't feel as long. It's a weird thing.
I think because Blood Omen was already a slow game.
True.
Like, think about Blood Omen and like those slow motion shit in the dungeons where it would just slow to a crawl. Whereas this, like, it feels like you're just going and going and going. And it's like, stop for 5 seconds. Go, 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 go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's especially whenever you like fall from a platform and you have to now go in a circle to get back to that point. Having to sit through all those loading screens to go to room to room to room to make it back to where you want to be, only to fall again and have to do it again. That's where I was getting the most annoyed.
Well, I also got annoyed every time I looked at that map.
I'm starting to accept the fact that they just didn't understand maps back in the day of how to do it the most convenient way.
I just wish that it would stay oriented either like on your screen or on the map. So like the way that they were different from each other made me have to constantly check it over and over again because I'm like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm. And especially when you're in person form in the dungeons, even though you're running one way, the map arrow is determined on which way your camera's pointing. So if you're pointing like looking face on to the guy, then your map's going to be backwards, the arrow, from what you're actually running.
It's just disorienting, and I don't know. I think maps are going to be a thing that we bring up a lot, but it just seems like such a simple fix to keep it locked or at least have that as an option. I don't know.
Yeah, and when they do it right, well, kind of right, like in Magic Carpet, where the map orients to the way you're looking and the way you're facing, that's fine. But then you throw in other stuff that makes it more complicated, and those are now problems. It's like, it just seems like at this stage in gaming, no one had the right way to do a map, and that's why we just see all these weird little flaws that could be fixed easily, but it just isn't.
Doesn't Metal Gear Solid have a good map though?
Honestly, I haven't played it in such a long time that I can't remember what the map looks like.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think there are games that definitely figured it out, and these other games should have just copy pasted those ones. Easier said than done, you know.
That's a good point too. Yeah, with how late this is, this technology of a map should have been resolved at this point.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2 was out at this point, I'm pretty sure. So like, that game definitely had a fine map. So I'm going to fact check myself really quick on that, because now as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, hold on, am I wrong? All right, sorry. This came out earlier in the year, and then Metal Gear Solid 2 came out later. But
okay. Still close enough.
We were at that point in gaming, so I don't know. It just feels like a budget game in a lot of ways too, where like maybe they didn't put the full budget behind the game. And I think that if they did, it would have made a big difference.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I always thought about what if they focused their time a little bit more, put more effort into certain areas. I think this game would be very near the top of the list because of that. But before we move on, because I'm almost done.
Yeah, I got one more note too, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Music is 10 out of 10. I loved it.
That was going to be my next point. The music.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get that in there. Like, that shit was so good.
There were times when it had like a Sonic vibe. There were times where it kind of sounded like it could easily fit into Persona. I don't know if you felt this. When you hear it on repeat for the like 60th time in a world, it kind of gets old.
Yeah, I think it's also because like the way that it loops sometimes, where like if you like do something and then you go back, the music like starts over.
Yes.
So that's like a little annoying, which it makes sense why they have to do that. But like, I don't know. I definitely got annoyed by it, and it eventually just became like, I'm not paying attention to this anymore. But the first time I heard some of these tracks, I was like, this is so cool.
Oh, 100% agree.
Like, especially the crazy bass, like there's the slap bass going the whole time.
Yeah, I think it was in the second, or it might have been the second world, maybe first world, where it's like that rock riff the entire time. And because, so I got stuck on the first world. And that's where a lot of my time went, because when I was in the dungeon, I missed a room and I went into the room, but I didn't realize there's an elevator. So I was like, oh, there's no doors in here. There's no objects. So I turned around and left, not realizing I needed to go on that to go up to the next level. So I had to use the walkthrough just to figure that part out. And then I didn't use the walkthrough at all after that. But hearing that song on repeat over and over again, by the end of it, I was tired of that track.
I'm sure. Whenever you get stuck, you just get really annoyed.
But aside from that, the other music is top tier.
All right, so you about ready to hop into these reviews then?
One last thing. So there's an area where there's a bunch of boxes, and that's all the room is there for. And you shoot all the boxes and collect whatever's in them. But I was running while shooting the boxes. And when I did that, I went through the back wall. I was very confused. So I came out of the wall and like, that was weird. Why was that able to do it? So I went back and walked up, and you can go through the right back wall, not the left one, but the right one. You literally go out of bounds of the map, and it's controlled. There's still invisible walls in the out of bounds, but then there's a pickup item out of bounds. So it's like you get those diamond things. It was like a golden diamond thing spinning there. How many more of those did I miss? Is there more? And it just felt so cheap to me to do that.
That's weird. Yeah, I never found any of that.
It was only because I was running the first time that I hit it. If I did what you did and just shot all the boxes and went and collect everything, I never would have found that. And it just made me question everything about the map.
That very much reminds me of like Dark Souls, where like there's the hidden walls that you have to hit. Like, unless you know it's there, you'll never find it ever.
Yeah, it feels cheap, no matter what the game is.
Yeah, at least in like Elden Ring and some of the later Souls games, like they have hints. Like, you're in another room and you can see there's a room there that you can't find. So where's the hidden wall? Like, that stuff is fine, where like they give you the hint and you find it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's literally so random, like I'm pretty sure we will play this eventually in Kingsfield. There's hidden walls, because I watched a video about the game a while ago, and you're just supposed to walk along the wall and just push X, and eventually you'll just find walls that are hidden.
Wow.
Like, I'm never going to do that when we play that. I will not. I refuse.
Nope. It just takes away from the entire gameplay.
Yeah, it just becomes like a scouring the map instead of just having fun.
Because when you find it once, you're like, okay, now what else did I miss? And now do I have to go back through and check every single wall for every single thing to maybe find another time I go outside of the map?
Yeah, and when shit like that happens, that's when you're like, might as well just play with a walkthrough now, because it'll tell me where it all is, and then fun's ruined. Yeah. All right. So this game got mixed reviews at the time, very wide range of scores. I have a general idea of where I'm going to put it, but I can see reasons why you would dislike this game, you know?
Right. And even before we got into this, I didn't have a number in my brain. I was just kind of wait to see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah. Do you have a number now?
I think so.
Okay. PSX Nation gave it an 82 out of 100. And they said, blasting again loads for a good 5 to 6 seconds when Sophia J7 moves from level to level via a wireframe-like tunnel. This happens every few minutes, sometimes less than a single minute, and is one heck of a dry patch on the sky hill that is the fast-paced shoot and dodge action.
Yep.
We already got into this, so it definitely, you feel it. Like, you feel the struggle of the constant loading screens for sure.
Mm-hmm. Whenever it's supposed to be any fast-paced game that we deal with going forward, if there's going to be a big loading screen or something that slows you down, it just takes you out of that mindset of like going fast and just killing things. And it just an unnecessary break that you don't need.
We forget how good we have it now with SSDs and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the opposite side of the spectrum, Game Informer gave it a 4 out of 10.
Jeez.
And here's what they said. Crappy Crapper might have been a better title for Blaster Master. Although I'm a fan of driving around in a jumping car and shooting stuff, this just quite didn't float my boat. Maybe it was the subpar graphics, maybe it was the boring missions, or maybe, just maybe, it was because this is a game that just should have never been released.
Very hot take there.
I think that guy's fucking insane.
Yeah, I get what he's saying with boring missions. We talked about it. It gets repetitive immediately, but I don't agree with everything else.
I can understand if you really don't like a game, but a 4 out of 10 is harsh as hell.
Yeah, that's like with us playing Tekken, where that's not our game. If we would have came in giving it like a 3 because of that, that's just not right.
I don't like fighting games. 2 out of 10. Like, yeah, you know.
Exactly.
All right, so that brings us to our scores. I had a good time playing this game. You know, we don't have to go through all the points we just went through, but I never got tired of playing it. Like you said, the time just went easily, and I would have played more if I had more time. I just never got fully burnt out on it, even though the game is very samey after a while. It's just a fun game to play from a gameplay level. So for that, I'm going to go with a 7.5.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, I gave Armored Core a 7.5. You know, I kind of feel similarly to that, where it's like, it's just fun. Like, I never got sick of it. And when I look at this list, there's so many that by the end, I was like, okay, I've hit the minimum that I'm going to play. I'm done. And with this, I never hit that.
That is true. And we kind of alluded to this before. There are upgrades we never got, specifically submarine. And then there's a hover boat one. And I think there's one, or not a hover boat, a hover car where you can fly. And then there's one more, I think. So I think if we were to get those ones, and like it just makes now these earlier levels even easier because now you can fly around them and stuff.
Exactly. Like the game has a good pace of like giving you upgrades and giving you just different abilities. I also feel like the game is not super long. Like I looked it up and it's like 6 to 7 hours. So we were like a little over halfway. So I feel like finishing it wouldn't have overstayed its welcome, you know?
Yeah, I get that. Now, I've been confused about my score the entire time. Just like with most of this game, I was confused about. But you just brought up a good point that Armored Core, very similar. And I gave that a 6.5. And I actually think this game is better. And I would keep playing this. So with that, I'd only go slightly better. I was going to go with a 7 then.
Yeah, I mean, the original thing I wrote down was 7 to 7.5. Like, I think if it was, you know, a little more negative of a conversation, I would have went 7 or even maybe a 6.5. But like, we both clearly like this game. So,
like I said, if this was polished in a few areas, it probably would have been up in the top 5.
I see the tie that we have now, and this is going to be an interesting one.
I was waiting for this. Yep. So we are tied for with a Siphon Filter, 7.25.
I don't really know.
Want me to start on this one?
Yeah.
So obviously, I have a lot of nostalgia for Siphon Filter. If we compare the games side by side, I think both get kind of repetitive with what you're doing. But I do think Siphon Filter is a little bit better in the sense that your environments are changing. They're not, you're duplicating enemies every time, but we didn't even make it to the point where enemies change in that game. And you're constantly doing something different. I feel like because of that makes Siphon Filter a little bit better.
I genuinely liked playing this game way more than Siphon Filter, but at the end of the day, Siphon Filter is an objectively better game. So I'm not really going to argue with it. I think to say this is better than Siphon Filter is just wrong. But for me personally, I would rather play this than Siphon Filter.
Interesting. And I think that just comes down to what we like with games. I personally, as much as I like this game and I could have kept playing it even more, I would probably not go back to it.
Yeah, it's all just personal preference. Yeah, I mean, I tend to gravitate towards more of a gameplay focused game that's, you know, maybe a little weird or wacky. Whereas like Siphon Filter is like very, very serious and just, you know, they try to tell a story. It's very like cinematic and like, I like those games too. But for this era, I prefer the more gameplay focused stuff like this.
I get that.
But at the end of the day, like I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah, and it results or shows in our scores of you gave Siphon Filter the 7, I gave this game the 7. So it tracks with what we're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, before we get out of here, I have my change for this week.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So just a nice, easy one. I'm going to move my score for Dino Crisis from a 7.5 to an 8.
Oh, wow. Going up.
At the time, I was too afraid to give it too high of a score because I was so high on it in the moment. I was like, I don't want to go crazy and then have to change it later. But I genuinely really, really liked it. And it was one of the few survival horror games that I felt engaged the whole time. And I just never got tired of it.
Nice.
Yeah, I had to use a walkthrough for that game, but like at the end of the day, like I still think about it. I still listen to the music from it. Like that's a game now forever that I will say I love Dino Crisis. And that doesn't happen on this show ever. So I just wanted to give it just a little higher.
Yeah, that works. It still keeps it at number 4. No change there, but
yeah, I mean that one was just for me. It wasn't to change the score. It was just for me to feel better about it. You know?
Yeah. I don't think I really have a change this week. I'm gonna have to think on it more. I think I'm pretty set on most of the games we have. So maybe next week I will have a change, but until that time, I don't have anything.
All right. Well, then I'll just give you another one then while we're here since you don't have one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and move Einhander down to a 7.5 from an 8.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you were the highest out of those people, or out of both Kyle and I.
Another case of playing with save states kind of clouded my vision of it. Incredibly hard game. And overall, just like, I love the aesthetics, the music, the vibes, but actually playing the game, not that great, you know?
I get that. I still enjoyed it, even though I never made it far. The difficulty was a nice touch. It makes you have to work to beat the game.
I just think if I would have played it like you played it at the time, I would not have given it an 8.
Oh, I doubt you would.
I might not have even given it a 7.5, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But I just, I can't judge it properly because I fucked it up for myself. So I think just bringing it down a tiny bit is a safe thing to do. So
cool.
So yeah, that does bring it down to number 8.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, you're right. Good eye.
So Siphon Filter and Blaster Master are above this game now. But I agree with that. I think they all have their positives, but at the end of the day, I think those two games are better.
I agree. I do agree. Like we always talk about, the top games we have are games we would go back to. And Einhander slowly getting pushed out of that top 10 makes sense. And because it's not a game I would continually go back to and play.
I fully believe Blaster Master and Siphon Filter will get pushed out eventually too. I mean,
100%.
There are really good games. You know what I mean? It's not going to stay there forever.
We haven't even made it to the 9s yet. So we have a long way to go, and all these are going to be pushed around.
I gave 2 9s. You haven't given any 9s.
Okay. Yes. Just the overall score has never been a 9.
Yeah, I know. All right. This has gone on long enough. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.